The following list of words will be banished by law as of January 15th, 2023. After that, there will be a grace period of approximately 2 weeks. Then violators will be prosecuted and may face fines and possible incarceration. I'm Larry Fedoruk, and this is Later That Same Life. Later That Same Life is my weekly podcast. Each week, a topic, discussion, or story from our lives.
Season 7, Chapter 10.
Banished
Words
2023.
Every year since 1976, Lake Superior State University has published a list of words and phrases that should be banished from daily conversation. Usually it's a top 10 list. The list is compiled from scholarly study plus general survey, and based on terms that are either overused, widely misused, generally useless, or a combination of all three. During my many years of talk shows, we always had fun with this list around this time of year. So I thought I'd bring the 2023 list to my podcast. By the way, Lake Superior State University is in Sault Ste. Marie, the Michigan side. Obviously, I was kidding off the top about the legal implications of continuing to use any of these words, but once you hear them, I'm sure in some cases you wouldn't mind if the word police came knocking on the doors of people who overuse them. Let's get started. This is the list of banished words for 2023 from Lake Superior State University in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. Though it's a top 10 list, I believe the list is in somewhat random order, i.e. number 1 is not necessarily more offensive than 9 or 10. But we start with GOAT, the acronym that means greatest of all time. I'm sure many will remember when being called the GOAT was a bad thing. You know, we would have won the championship if you didn't fumble. I guess you're the GOAT. Live with it. But now GOAT, greatest of all time, has been used to describe everyone from Tom Brady to a Jeopardy contestant. GOAT begins the banished word list because of its overuse. Plus, technically, it's impossible to determine the greatest of all time until maybe time itself ends. And even after that, it would probably still be debatable. Next, inflection point. I'll admit to not really hearing this term before. Inflection point? Yeah, so this is banished largely for misuse. Originally, inflection point is a mathematical term. Lake Superior University now says it's simply a pretentious way to say turning point. Next, banished, quiet quitting. I did a podcast on this when the phrase first entered our lexicon. The term began after the phenomenon known as the Great Resignation, where people did not resign, but provided minimum time and effort on the job, which was more easily facilitated because of working from home. And they called it quiet quitting. The list makers have pointed out that it is nearly impossible for an individual to inconspicuously resign, and that sooner than later, minimal effort would be noticed by an employer. So quiet quitting, it's a catchy phrase and an alluring thought as a way to make money for doing nothing, but it's not really possible. Next, banished words for 2023. Gaslighting. The reason given for including this on the list, and I agree, is that its overuse disconnected the term from the real concerns identified. And those are the dangerous psychological manipulations that can cause a person to doubt their own thoughts, feelings, memories, and perceptions of reality. Gaslighting. The term comes from the classic 1944 film Gaslight, where Charles Boyer does this to Ingrid Bergman with actual gas that was used to light homes back in the day, or I guess back in the night. For reasons explained in the plot, which I won't get into, Before he leaves the house, Boyer turns the lights on, then blows out the flame. So the steady flow of gas begins to affect Bergman's mind. Then further, when she shares her concerns with her beloved Boyer, he tells her she's crazy. Gaslighting. The modern-day version is real, but it's on this year's Banished Words list because its constant misuse is used to cover any conflict or disagreement. Next, moving forward. This is similar to going forward, which was actually banished by the university list in 2001. Moving forward fits all the categories: overuse, misuse, and uselessness. As in, we can't go backwards in time. How else are we going to move? I get the implication of the usage. You can't live in the past. You can't stand still. Moving forward. But politicians and corporate bosses tend to overuse the term moving forward as a misdirection. After that on the list, the term amazing. Simply, it's overused. Not everything is amazing, so, stop saying that. At number 7, the phrase, "Does that make sense?" This received many submissions from voters. "Does that make sense?" was cited as useless filler in the middle of a story, and it speaks to one's own insecurity or a need for confirmation of their thoughts so far. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Next, irregardless. I remember being chastised for using that term back in grade school. Had no idea it was still around and popular enough to be banished. First of all, it's not a word. Described by the university this year as taking the word regardless and trying to dress it up for no apparent reason. Okay, we're almost done here. Next is absolutely. Absolutely as a replacement for a simple yes. And yes, it was banished in 1996, but I guess made enough of a comeback to be banished again in 2023. What happened to yes, or a nod, or a simple agreement? I guess people feel now they must really agree. Absolutely. I actually have a similar peeve with another like term, but I'll get to my suggestions later. And lastly, on the Lake Superior University's now famous annual list of banished words, it is what it is. Also previously banished, but sneaking back into the vernacular under cover of darkness. It is what it is. What it is pointless, it's a cop-out, and as they said, only Yogi Berra should be allowed to talk like that. Well, what do you think? A good list? Do you use or even overuse any of those terms? I've been guilty. And now will you try and stop or at least, cut down? At the beginning of 2022, this same list suggested we stop using these. Wait, what? No worries. At the end of the day, that being said, asking for a friend, circle back, deep dive, new normal, you're on mute, and supply chain. Those were supposed to be banished this past year, and yet I keep hearing them. I guess many did not obey the list. Maybe they didn't get the memo. Yeah, didn't get the memo. I'm sure that term has already been banished. Well, either way, those who keep using the banished terms, troublemakers. I actually overheard a conversation recently, this is true, one woman to another. She said, "At the end of the day, when all is said and done, that is neither here nor there." I almost tapped the other woman on the shoulder and said, "Excuse me, is this your friend here? Because if so, drop her immediately. She's not helping. She's just stringing together meaningless words, passing them off as advice. Of course, I didn't do that because, none of my business. I was trying to mind my own beeswax. I mentioned that Lake Superior State has been publishing this list since 1976. So I thought it might be fun to go even further back to see just some of the words they had banished over the years. And keep in mind their conditions: overuse, misuse, uselessness. In 1976, among others, they banished macho and scenario. In 1977, it was new dimension. In 1978, you better believe. The bottom line was on the banished list for 1979, and in 1980, no problem. For the rest of the 1980s, the banished list included exact same: past history, moral majority, hot water heater, sit on it, Reaganomics, awesome, user-friendly, up to speed, there you go, shower activity, on a roll, fresh, frozen, and baby boomers. We weren't actually banned, just the term baby boomers. Those were all banned in the 80s, but I'm sure you still hear many of those daily. During the 1990s, terms on the banished list included all except, mute point, because the actual term is moot point, but a lot of people still don't get that one right, do they? What else was on the list in the 90s? Here we are, vis-a-vis, close to everything, get with the program, vast majority, to die for, been there, done that, talk to the hand, you go girl, and you demand. Again, I've heard people use some of these terms as recently as last week. I guess some of these terms are harder to kill than others. And just because you make the banished words list doesn't mean you'll die.
Add it up.
Making the banished terms list so far in the 21st century, here's a few of them, a few of my faves. Faves as in I hate them. Negative growth, synergy, untimely death, smoking gun, making points, under the bus, not so much, shovel ready, just saying, man cave, trending, hashtag, takeaway, problematic, guesstimate, pre-owned, optics, quid pro quo, and in these uncertain times. It's amazing how these terms just begin and spread like a virus. One of my pet peeves, just a minute, pet peeve, that was probably on the banished list. Okay, anyway, one of the things that really pisses me off is how the terms and hundreds of others just get picked up and repeated until the original meaning they had, if they had one, is lost. We had a clear example of this just in the past year, U.S. midterm elections. Red wave. It was meant as a Republican sweep. Didn't happen. The thing was, no one ever actually predicted or expected a red wave. One guy just posed a question one day, will Democrats win or will we see some sort of red wave? But then it was picked up by politicians, news anchors, talking heads of all kinds. So when it didn't happen, the reports were the expected red wave was barely a trickle. Again, no one expected it. It wasn't even used as a campaign slogan. It was just something that was heard and picked up and repeated and reported incorrectly. It happens all the time. Drives me nuts. All right, let's recap the Lake Superior State University list of banished words for 2023. Goat, inflection point, quiet quitting, gaslighting, moving forward, amazing, does that make sense, irregardless, absolutely, and it is what it is. You can go to Lake Superior State's website and begin submitting terms for next year. Here's some of my suggestions. On the heels of absolutely, the term 100%. Instead of saying yes or I agree, people overuse the term, 100%, which causes yet others to go into sports athlete mode, and they say, 110% or 1,000%. Like, wow, they really agree, 1,000%. The next one I suggest is, walk us through. That is mostly used by lethargic news anchors throwing to a reporter. Live in London right now is Fluffy Nickerson. Well, Fluffy, walk us through what's been happening there. Walk us through the latest. It's dumb, it's lazy, never mind insensitive to people who can't walk. I think we should cancel the term cancel culture. And also, is it me or does it bug people when someone starts a question with the phrase, is it me? Is it me or is it a little chilly in here? Well, of course it's you. You just need confirmation that it's not just you. Does that make sense? I also wish people would stop calling everything unprecedented, even if it is. I could also do without the terms first world problems, fair enough, my bad, and the constant misuse of the term woke. Popular words and phrases, they do come and go. They're in vogue, they're overused, some fade quickly, others take longer. I've always thought the longest lasting cool word in the history of cool is the word cool. Saying cool has never been uncool. Hip comes and goes. It came from hep, bad used to mean good, then it was bad again. Groovy had a short run, far out, neato, nifty, boss, super, swell, chill, wild, but cool has always been cool. You cool with that? I'm cool. Cool shoes. Cool out. Cool down. Be cool. Lake Superior State released the list this year with this message off the top. Stop resorting to imprecise, trite, and meaningless words and terms of seeming convenience. You're taking the lazy way out and only confusing matters by over-relying on inexact, stale, and inane communications. Unquote. Yeah, I think we do that, me included. Words matter. Words matter. Yeah, how long before even that term goes on the banished list? But words do matter. As Barry Gibb so famously sang, it's only words. Words are all I have to take your heart away. Yeah, I'm quoting the Bee Gees. What of it? I guess I could quote someone more recent, but come on, they had hits in 5 different decades. Quote someone more modern. I'm not going to do that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go further back. 17th century. English poet and scholar George Herbert, who said, "Good words are worth much and cost little."
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.